Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Pursuit Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Engineer, and on today's episode, we have Taylor Chamberlin from the Hunt Urban YouTube channel, as well as the Hang and Hunt podcast. Taylor has been someone we've followed for several years now, and I know Ben and I are really excited to have him on. We discussed how he got started in hunting, his addiction to archery, being a large figure in the hunting industry, and of course, the challenges of hunting whitetails in our nation's capital. Please welcome Taylor Chamberlin. All right, everyone, we are here, like I just mentioned, with Taylor Chamberlin, or some of you on Instagram may know him as @UrbanBowman. Sir, how the hell are you?
I'm awesome. How are you all today?
We're doing great, man.
Doing great.
Glad to have you on. Like I said before we start recording, obviously we've watched all your stuff. I've been a big fan of yours for the last 3 or so years. Really started, honestly, with the first Light in City Limits video. I was looking for some, I guess, new apparel or new gear. First Light was an option, then I just kind of saw that video and it kind of snowballed from there. So before we get started, man, let's talk about your history. I know for those of you who may not know, you have the YouTube channel as well as obviously your Instagram page. So some of this information is already out there, you know, with the podcast that you guys are running too. But let's kind of talk about your history and kind of what got you started into hunting and kind of where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on, and I'm glad that you got to check out In City Limits and watch that. It's crazy to think how much time has passed since we filmed that, but it was that was a blast. So my background, I did not grow up hunting. Nobody in my family hunted. I grew up, was born and raised in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., so Arlington, Virginia. My family just didn't hunt. My mom's dad was from Georgia. He did hunt, and he loved to bow hunt, but he was also a smoker, being raised on a tobacco farm as a young kid. I think he started smoking pretty early, especially in the 40s, but so by the time I was like 12, 13, he was not in any type of shape to like take me hunting, right? But I remember him telling stories about going to their cabin in the woods that he had with some buddies and doing some hunting. And so I kind of always thought hunting was like really cool. And I loved being outdoors. I loved exploring and kind of like going to parks. My house growing up backed up to a bunch of parkland that led down to the Potomac. And so my brothers and I would always be out in the woods, doing whatever, screwing around and playing paintball on federal parkland.
Yeah, sure.
And all kinds of stuff.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly, right? So when I went to college, I was like, I knew that I loved being outdoors, and my grandfather, who was a big hunter, taught me how to shoot a bow, but I never put two and two together. So I'd like shoot a bow in his backyard in a cardboard box, like an old recurve, and I'd shoot a bow at like, camp or whatnot. But I never got to, realize that I'd be into hunting. And so when I went to school, I woke up one day and decided like, I want to learn how to hunt. And it was my sophomore year in college. And it was like right before hunting season. And so I went online and I found a hunter safety course so I could get my license. And it was like an hour and a half drive away. And it was a 3-day class. And I signed up for it. And I drove an hour and a half each way for 3 days in a row to like get my license. And then I just bumbled around, federal, state forest that you can hunt in that year during gun season, and would screw up and try to figure out how I screwed up, and just taught myself how to hunt. And over the years in college, I was strictly a gun hunter because I thought it was better, or was seemed more logical. But one of my roommates in college had a bow and taught me how to shoot the bow, and so I went out and bought a bow. And like an old Bear, it was like a TRX 400, I think it was, and the rest was history. That fire kind of got lit, I remember shooting those at our frat house, and that was probably not the safest place to be shooting a bow, but it was a
Shooting them
good
at the
place to
beer cans.
learn. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you got to drink more to get more targets, and then the spiral unfolds. But yeah, so the way that I got into urban hunting though is like by the time by my 8th year of college, when I was finally a senior, I was really pretty good at going out in the woods and hunting. And I kind of learned how to hunt big woods. I got really into like studying topo and figuring out why deer would move in a certain area. And I thought it was so cool to be able to like use a deer's natural defense mechanism against them. I thought that was like that to me was the definition of hunting.
Sure. Yeah.
I got really big into the hunting beast and like bed hunting and big woods hunting, and I got pretty good at it. I mean, not for I never was trying to kill big bucks. I just wanted to shoot does. Like I was setting the bar pretty low for myself.
Sure.
And so then I moved back to Northern Virginia after I graduated from school, and I was kind of bummed out because I felt like I like really gotten into hunting. I mean, I fell in love with it to the point where I was not partying at night just so I could wake up early and go hunting, which for anyone who's listened to Billy and my podcast know that we like partying a lot. So that was
No
a pretty
doubt.
big trade-off. Yeah, and so when I moved back to Northern Virginia, I was bummed. There was nowhere for me to hunt. I was trying to figure it out. I did find one military base that was like, I don't know, 45-minute drive from my house that allowed hunting, and I would hunt there. But I mean, during traffic, it was brutal. There was no Sunday hunting, so you could really only hunt Saturdays, and everybody and their brother were out there, and it was just kind of tough. And I remember one day I was driving to go hunt there, and I was sitting in traffic. I was watching deer feed in somebody's front yard. Like my car was stopped in the road. And I just thought to myself, why the hell am I driving to go hunt when I know there are deer here in these people's yards?
Yeah, no doubt.
And like, why am I leaving deer to find deer? That's retarded. So I had a mutual friend, Billy, who I didn't know very well at the time. Our mutual friend knew Billy, and he had told me that this guy hunts in people's yards. And so I had him set us up on like a blind date, and
That's
the rest
awesome.
is history.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, Billy had already been kind of figuring out the ropes of urban hunting, and took me along and kind of took me under his wing, and we became like pretty much instant best friends, and have been hunting together ever since. And that was like 15 years ago. So I remember the first urban hunt I went on. I had convinced my grandmother, who was playing in a bridge club, to get me permission on one of her bridge buddies' properties. It was just this awesome 5-acre spot, and there were always deer there. I knew where the lady lived. And I went out there, got permission. I shot 4 deer on my first hunt, like 40 yards from my car. And I was like, this is awesome. It was the most, like, it was the greatest hunt ever. And I called Billy, and he helped me drag him out. And the rest is history. So it's been a fun kind of progression into the urban hunting stuff, and figuring out that, if you truly are passionate about something, you're going to find a way to do it no matter where you live. And, lo and behold, it turned out that there was this amazing, like, gold mine that I was sitting on top of that I thought was going to be a total bummer, and it ended up being like the greatest opportunity ever. I mean, now, we get to hunt year round, literally 365 hunting, and we have unlimited tags, and we get to fill a lot of them. So it's been a lot of fun.
You get to fill, and you guys certainly do fill quite a bit of them. I think the other day when we were talking to Billy, he was like, yeah, I think he'd already shot like 3 this week. So it was pretty eye-opening, if you will. So you're saying you're hunting basically all year round. I kind of know where this question is going to lead just from knowing you and your content, but let's talk about some of that support system that you have. I know you joke with your wife about hunting, but now that you guys have kids and stuff, how is that? What's that look like now?
It's definitely been a whole new battlefield.
For sure.
Literally and figuratively. No, I mean, I'm super fortunate to have a awesome spouse that fully understands that that this is bordering on an obsession. Like, I have to hunt. It's where, like, I find challenge, and it's where I also find peace and kind of like meditation.
Definitely.
A lot of people that aren't hunters don't realize that you can go on a hunt, not see a single critter, and have the greatest night or morning ever, right? It's all about being able to kind of be in a place where you can relax and be alone and be quiet, or play on your phone the entire time if you want to, but
yeah.
you can do whatever the hell you want to do, and it's relaxing. And so my wife knows that, and also, like, this is my job, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
I work in the hunting industry. I kind of have to, but it was important for me that hunting never became work.
Yep.
And it is work, and sometimes, but you have to remember, like, how fortunate you are to be able to do this, and how awesome it is to be able to travel around the country and shoot critters on somebody else's dime. That's awesome, and you should never take that for granted. But I mean, to your question, my wife is very supportive, and it's all about communication, man. It's just like anything else. Like, I look at the weather, I pick a couple days that I'm going to go out and hunt. I let her know, and then we work around it. And then, she does the same with her work schedule. And now COVID kind of threw a whole nother wrench in the gears with, childcare and whatnot. But, you just have to adapt and roll on. Otherwise, you're screwed. But yeah, I think the toughest thing has been the addition of travel. So, like, when I'm working or when I'm at home and I'm hunting around home, it's really easy, right? Like, especially this time of year when it gets dark at 5:36, I can hunt and be home and really not have missed anything with the kids, or very little.
Exactly.
But when we're traveling to go film like tethered TV content, and I'm gone or filming, First Light content, I mean, man, it's tough. Like, last year for First Light, we went on 6 week-long trips from the first week in September until right before Christmas. And if you think about it, that's a lot of travel over like a three-month time span. And, again, super fortunate to do it, but you also feel kind of like you're letting your spouse down when, she's dealing with 2 kids on her own.
Plus a job.
And working. And, my wife has a pretty intensive job. It's not like she's just like a, working hourly somewhere,
exactly.
Not to belittle anybody who's working hourly, but she has a very demanding career, and also is dealing with kids. So she deserves all the credit in the world, while I'm just out, screwing around somewhere in Kentucky or Kansas or Oklahoma or whatever. And then I come home and I'm like, well, I got to hunt here too. Like, I gotta go shoot deer here.
Yep.
But yeah, it's awesome to have a spouse that gets it. And, she laughs that when we were first dating, I think we were on like our 3rd or 4th date, I could tell that this was getting kind of serious, and we both liked each other. And I told her, I was like, look, I said, every relationship I've been in ends around hunting season, right? Because not only am I a fanatical hunter, I'm also a really big time golfer. So like, I roll from deer season, which never ends for me, into turkey season, and then from there into golf. And I'm like, then I'm gone for 6 hours playing golf instead of gone for 6 hours.
No, honey, I swear I'm only playing 1 round today.
Yeah, exactly. And
while you're at the 19th.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the scene from Wolf of Wall Street where he's crawling to the cars and like, I'm at the country club. But she's a saint to put up with me. But I told her, I was like, look, like, these are my hobbies, and I'm not going to change. And if you're one of those chicks that's trying to change dudes, you need to, we need to just stop seeing each other right now. And she was like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm cool with that, because my wife is a very competitive runner.
Okay.
And so she understands the passion and the fire of it. But I don't think she knows exactly what, or now she does, but at the time
Yeah,
she didn't
exactly.
know exactly what she was signing up
What she was
for.
signing up.
Um,
I guess
yeah,
that leads
but
me
we
to
trade off a lot.
I guess that leads me to a question. I don't think I've ever heard you mention this before. Maybe you have, but like, does she have like? I mean, have you tried to get her into it? I mean, obviously, you're a really good person to get someone into something like this. I mean, in terms of knowledge, does she just like? I mean, if she's like mine, she doesn't care to be a hunter. But like, has she expressed any interest to like maybe like want to hang with you or whatever for for a hunt?
Yeah, so just for people that don't know, like I live right outside of Washington, D.C. It's a very affluent area. My wife grew up in Annapolis, Maryland, which
Yeah.
is also incredibly affluent. Her dad was a professor at the Naval Academy
Okay.
for years and served. My wife grew up wearing, uh, looking like an Easter egg, right? Like very preppy,
Yes.
as did
Yes.
I. But so I don't think she ever intended to marry a dude that his hobby is going out and shooting things and
Shooting
bringing them
animals.
home,
Yep.
yeah, and putting them in the freezer. She was never exposed to any hunters, but we did when we first. I guess we'd been dating for a couple of years. We got our dog, who's a German Shorthair Pointer. I do a ton of upland bird hunting as well, and so she expressed a little bit of interest in learning how to shoot birds. She wanted to hunt over the dog. And so I went and I was like, this is awesome. I bought her a shotgun. I gave it to her, I think for Christmas or her birthday one year. And when she opened it, she was like, this is really a gun? And I was like, yeah, it's your own shotgun. Like, you can come with me. And she tried a couple times, and then we realized that maybe she would enjoy staying in the lodge while we were out shooting birds, and maybe going on jogs when we came back.
Sure.
So
Sure. No.
I have tried a little. I don't want to push her
No. No.
or anything, but she is just not into it. She'd rather be on a sailboat than out in the woods hunting.
That's awesome. We'll have to talk about that offline too, because my wife, her family, her uncle was actually in the Naval Academy too, and is probably about the same age as your guys' parents. So it'll be interesting to see. His wife also grew up in Annapolis too, so there's definitely some similarities there for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have to play the name game.
Yeah, definitely. So I know Ben is a huge tinkerer. We joked this year. I mean, he was doing all sorts of tinkering this year with gear. So I'll let him get into this one, but let's talk about some of your gear setup. I know he's got some questions for you on that.
Yeah, so like you hunt a ton, obviously. How much does your gear setup change from your urban setup to like when you go to Oklahoma or wherever? Do you have like a minimal setup in urban and then go to a more in-depth setup when you're out somewhere rural, or does it just stay the same?
So it stays the same, but it's constantly being what I would think of as evolved, but Billy would tell you is being just screwed with. So I'm like never happy with my gear. I'm constantly trying to chase improvements, and that might be something as little as moving a little connection point on my saddle, like one molly loop over, or that could be me coming home from a hunt and being like, I hate this pack, I'm going to trash it, and just like on the back of my tailgate, switching completely to a different backpack, or just ripping a bow sight off and putting a new sight on, or like cutting all the stuff off my bow and retuning it to run like an eighth of an inch lower in the burger hole. I mean, I'm like constantly, or changing broadheads out, or going from a 3 fletch to a 4 fletch, or like running an additional percent of FOC. I'm like very, very anal and always trying to evolve my gear. So my gear never stays the same. For example, Billy and I were out on a hunt on the eastern shore of Maryland. We were hunting Sika deer, and I came home from the hunt, and I was just like, I'm changing bow sights, and I went from a Garmin sight to a 2-pin Ultra View sight, And then I switched from that to an HHA sight, and then I switched back to the UltraView sight. And that was in the process of like, I don't know, 6 hunts. And probably, I'd say half of the hunts I shot deer, right? But I was just like, I don't like this, or I don't like that, or, I'll change climbing methods and mess around. So part of what I'm changing evolves based on the need, right? So for example, I'm going to Oklahoma. I'm not going to have a camera guy with me. I need to pack all my stuff into like 1 check bag or 2 check bags. So like, okay, cool. I'm going to bring my 1 stick. I'm going to put some pool noodles over the teeth of it so it doesn't poke through my luggage, and I'm going to pack everything that way. Or, maybe I'm going to Missouri to film with, First Light, and I know that I need to be ultra mobile, and so I'm going to have a camera guy with me, and I'm packing my 1 sticks or something. Like, so I think through kind of 2 different trains of thought. One is like, what do I need out of necessity? And then the other is, what do I need to change to like constantly evolve my kit?
Sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool.
That definitely makes sense. I mean, I know that when we talked, we joked because I remember you did a video about, I think it was, were you setting up that V3X? And I was like, you're running it, how did that go? I think it was something like 3/16 above the burger hole. I'm like, why? And he was like, oh, don't worry about that. I already changed it. And it was just like, just within like, just you dropped the video, and I was like, are you sure about that? And he's like, yeah, I already changed it. Like, don't worry about it. Like, I've already tweaked it.
Yeah. So I had been trying running the arrow a little. I used to run the arrow slightly high in the burger hole, and I was messing with the height above the burger hole relative to holding, right? So what I had found was that, and some target archers do this, and the reason target archers do it and it works for them is different than it does for hunters. So by running the arrows slightly higher in the burger hole, you're actually able to get a little downward pressure, between where the knocking point is, where your D-loop is, and your grip, right?
Yeah.
And so by pushing down into it, creating like a little horizontal or like 10 degrees, let's just make up a number, like 5 degrees or 10 degrees of downward pressure into that grip, you can actually hold steadier on target.
Okay.
And you can still tune a bow to fly properly, but in order to do that, when you have like a V coming off the cams, you're running it out of its true dead center, and therefore, in order for it to leave dead center and get like perfect arrow flight, you need to have the cams slightly untimed.
Gotcha.
In order for that flight. And so what that does is a guy shooting an X at 20 yards can do that all day. It works better for them to do that because you have slightly less pin float. And I'm talking about like splitting hairs here, right?
Sure,
this
definitely.
is how insane that I am. But when you magnify that out, if you start shooting a bear shaft at 20, 30, 40 yards, you're going to notice erratic arrow flight because that arrow is destabilizing because it's not being launched truly perfect, right? The timing of the cams is slightly off. So that experiment ended in me running it dead center through the vertical and timing it perfectly. But that was something where, so like between my hunts, I was like a day away from going to Oklahoma, and I just was like, screw this is wrong. I need to run this dead center, and was like up until the wee hours of the morning, like, cutting all this stuff off the V3X that I had, which was a prototype bow at the time. And then, retuning it at sunrise the next morning before I left for Oklahoma. But it was, there's no better feeling than having a bow perfectly tuned because, what I'll do is I'll tune it in my basement, I'll go outside, I'll shoot bear shafts with fletched arrows. And by the time that bow was done, I was shooting a softball-sized group at 40 yards with 5 bear shafts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's insane, right? So like if a bear shaft is flying that well, you could tie an F-16 on the front of it and still shoot fine.
Oh, for
So
sure, for sure.
it works out well.
I know you got some things after this. We could probably go on with tuning for like 6 hours, to be honest with you. Because
I could dive down a rabbit hole on the
we're gonna
Ashby stuff and everything.
Oh yeah, we'll get down a rabbit hole on that. But yeah, we'll move ahead. But one thing I did want to mention, I didn't plan to talk to you about this, but we kind of brought it up a little bit. Like, so we have Taylor is in college. He's learning how to hunt. You're being successful at it. At what point? Let's get into like some of the industry stuff just a little bit. At what point did you start building relationships with First Light and then obviously Tethered, where you are now? Like how did that like transpire? Like how does that even like come to a thing, if you will?
Yeah, through drinking.
Yeah, perfect. There we go. Just there. That's the answer I expected you to say.
So several years ago, the ATA helped out with some legal cases for backyard hunting, and I was there was a case where people were trying to not allow hunting in the suburbs. The ATA knew that it was a important case, and they helped provide funding for it. And I'm forever indebted to the ATA.
Oh, 100%. Sure.
But so the ATA invited me out to the ATA show, and Billy and I went, and it was awesome. I was like a kid in a candy store because like here I am, an archery nerd, now able to see, touch, and feel all the stuff that's coming out. And I started talking to some people out there, getting to know people. And I mean, I'm just pretty naturally a social person, right? So like if you put me in an ATA show, like I'm going to talk to people. I want to learn about their gear. I'm going to ask some questions. I met some companies and started chatting with them about the fact that I hunt year round. And I'm super analytical. I have like an engineering mindset. So to a handful of these companies, I was like the perfect person to test gear. Like, for example, broadheads. Like, how many guys do you know they can put that many arrows in the air and then, speak to you in somewhat of an intelligent fashion on like what went wrong or why it went wrong, or at least my thoughts on it, right? Like, it's not just Bubba being like, hey man, this thing didn't penetrate, right? It's
exactly.
like, well, I'm shooting a arrow at 270 feet per second at an 18% FOC on a quartered away, 112-pound doe. Like, this should have blown through, and I think the blade angle is a little wrong, whatever it might be, right? So I started getting into the industry, testing gear out, and really like helping R&D products. Gotcha. And I just did it out of a love of being an archery nerd. And from there, I was working with some different clothing companies, and I met the guys over at First Light back in like 2014, and got to know Cal. Cal was like their third or second employee, and he was still very active. I mean, as he still is. This has never changed, but he came to DC a lot for different lobbying efforts. And so we would meet up, hang out, and it got to the point where they were like, look, we want to make whitetail clothing, and we'd like for you to run our gear and tell us how it works, whatever. So I was like, hell yeah, this sounds awesome. I started hunting with First Light gear that was all Western gear and building a kit to work in the Burbs, or just for whitetail.
Sure.
And so that led down the path of getting to know the guys at First Light, working with them a ton, and they were still a really small company. This is like 2013, 2014, and one of the guys over there reached out who I had talked to all the time, and they were like, look, we want to do some like feature videos, and we think that it would be really cool to document like what you're doing. And I was like, hell yeah, that sounds awesome. So at the time, like, I would take a video camera with me in the woods, but yeah, I just like fire it up at the tree and record random stuff, and then that was it, right? And I ended up getting to meet the guys from Capture Creative. They came out to film in city limits, and Taylor and Jordan became some of my best friends, right? And they still to this day are. I mean, they help with the podcast and all of our video content, and they're just awesome dudes that I love working with. But that kind of is what led down the path of more camera time in the industry. So we came out, In City Limits dropped, and it just like instantly caught fire, and it had like 300,000 or some odd views and a bunch of people reaching out. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe people actually want to see what it's like to hunt in the suburbs, and just the crazy crap that we get to experience that we consider normal, because it's just another day in the burbs. And so we started putting out content under the Hunter name, and then that quickly snowballed as well. And we were like, okay, we are right. People do want to see this crap.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, it looks like it's got, I just pulled it up right now, 351,000 views. I kind of had it pulled up. I was doing a little bit of like re-review to refresh myself. Yeah, 351.
That's awesome.
Isn't that crazy? 351,000. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, it was interesting. So when they got together with you, was that was the ASAT is the one camo pattern that they had prior to like releasing like Fusion. Yeah.
Yep.
So was that, because I know there for a while they were basically kind of using like Realtree or Mossy Oak camo with their logos on it, like a lot of companies do. But was that prior to them having their own like proprietary like pattern?
Yeah. So when I first joined First Light, it was all licensed camo. So my first like crate of goodies was all ASAT stuff, and then they came out with Fusion, and I switched over to Fusion, hunted with Fusion. I mean, I still hunt, I guess, some in Fusion, but not really much anymore. And then Cypher came out. I never really hunted much in Cypher. I had like maybe one or two pieces for like late season in Cypher, and then I got to work with them on creating the Spectre. So it was a lot of fun, wearing the Spectre. Although for me, I hate having stuff that's unreleased. Like I end up just in the nature of, helping R&D stuff, or shoot content around stuff. I end up with a lot of prototype gear to help design stuff, but I hate having it because I'm always terrified to be the guy who ends up on Archery Talk who screwed up and showed the new bow, or took a picture of my new saddle or some new product in my closet or whatever, right?
Oh,
so I'm always super cautious to not screw that up. And there have been plenty of times that I have, and just fortunately people never caught on to it. But like when we came out with the Phantom saddle from Tethered, I hunted with that for a full season, and we just wrapped it in First Light camo, and fortunately nobody really figured it out. But then we were like, dude, this saddle's really cool. Like, what if we made one of these out of Spectre? And then, now we just released our new Spectre saddle. It's called the Elite Kit, which is super cool. So it's just funny how like some of that stuff happens in the industry as well. But
how it transpired. How it transpired.
And it's such a small industry, man. Like for anybody that wants to get into it, it's cool. If you are just truly passionate about hunting and you just kind of work your butt off, like you will figure out a way into the industry. The people that tend to be flash in the pans are the ones that just want attention for whatever they're doing. And,
and you can tell who those people are for sure. I mean, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, they come and go. But the guys that are truly in it, God, I love hunting without a camera way more than I like hunting with one, because I'm able to focus on killing something instead of going into kill mode and then being like, oh God, I need to move the camera this way or that way.
You just made Ben smile, because he's always been my video guy for stuff at work, and he's the same way. He's like,
I'd rather just be there to hunt.
I don't want that camera. Yeah.
Yeah, and with inevitably the one hunt that you don't bring the camera is where you shoot like 4 deer and it's awesome and like the craziest crap happens. So I force myself to take it, but every time I'm cussing the camera when I move it and that doe behind me starts blowing because I never saw her, and I'm like, cool, hunt over for trying to document it. Way to go.
All right, everyone, we're going to take a quick break from our conversation with Taylor and introduce you to Tethered. They're a company founded on principles of educating the community on saddle hunting while creating the most innovative, lightweight, and safe products for hunters. They have mobile hunting gear options for all types, and we're proud to say that we offer their products at our Hebron, Lebanon, and Obetz locations. Be on the lookout for more information about the one-day event we're co-hosting with Tethered this August. Now let's get back into the conversation. So it was cool to see like how your rise and just like, I don't know, how the gear has changed, and, you know, just the influence, you know, that people can just have an easier time having an influence to others now. And obviously we're having this conversation, which is cool to me because, you know, you like I've told you, like you kind of helped start that for us. So especially when it comes to the saddle stuff.
Well, that's super cool, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's funny to hear you say rise. Like, I don't think there's any rise. I'm just a dude who like loves to shoot deer, and fortunately, you know, I'm very blessed that I'm able to do it year round, and it's pretty cool that that I get to do it, you know, here in the Burbs. But like with saddle hunting, for example, saddle hunting's caught fire, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that Billy introduced me to a saddle back in like 2008.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
And I had been reading. So when I taught myself how to hunt, I consumed every bit of hunting content possible. I subscribed to Field and Stream, Outdoor Life, like Deer and Deer Hunting, North American Whitetail, and I would read them cover to cover. And I would even like take notes of how these people were doing what they were doing. And then any whitetail book, I've probably read it. My version of Mapping Trophy Bucks by Brad Herndon looks like a college textbook. There's crap that's highlighted throughout it. I have, you know, like a bunch of highlighter sticky notes like coming out of the side of it. I mean, it's crazy. And, you know, for me, those were textbooks, right?
Yeah,
that they're educational tools. And I was also reading all of John Eberhardt's books, and like just would read them cover to cover, and then I'd read them again and read them again. And each one of John's books have a chapter in them about saddle hunting. And so there used to be, I was like, this sounds so cool to me, because hunting in people's yards, there might only be, like, we're hunting on a quarter acre or half acre. There might be 2 trees total on the yard, right? Like, we're not talking about a ton of woods where you can pick one or pick the other. And I kept having experiences where I'd like mark a spot on my old Garmin handheld GPS, and I'd navigate back to it in the wee hours of the morning on this military base, and I'd then look around for a tree to climb. And I'd be like, okay, can't climb that one, can't climb that one, can't climb that one. And by the time I found a tree I could climb, I'm like 40 yards off the X. And then I'd watch deer walk within 10 yards of the X, and I can't shoot them because I'm too far away. And this is when I was using a climber. And I'm like, this is stupid. There has to be a better way to hunt. And so I read about the saddle, and then met Billy like a week later, and we were talking about what he hunted from. He was like, oh, I use this thing called a saddle. And I'm like, dude, I got to try that, because I've read about it, but there's no information about them out there. And I tried it, and I went home. And I had been out of school for maybe a month, 2 months. I had no money. I'm broke as hell. And it was like, okay, I'm going to buy this saddle on eBay that I found for $115. Buy it now. But if I buy it, I have no beer money for next weekend. So if I buy it, I'm not able to go out next weekend. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. And so I bought it and had Billy show me how to use it, and the rest is history. But, you know, like, we've been using saddles forever because it's the most efficient way to hunt. And they sucked at first, man. Like, they were terrible. It wasn't until Ernie and Greg came along and came out with the platform. But, like, you know, the way that I met those guys, we met on an internet chat room called saddlehunter.com.
Yep.
back in the day when there were only like 60 members. Like you knew everybody on there. And I'll never forget when my wife was like, so you're going into business with some dudes you met on the internet?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, when you say it like that, it sounds a little weird.
No doubt.
Right? But it's just a bunch of passionate dudes that like love saddle hunting. And then, lo and behold, because of social media and the way that it's easier to get the word out about products, saddle hunting finally caught fire. The idea has been around forever.
Yeah.
The solution of what to do with your feet with the platform was huge. But then like having a bunch of like-minded guys that were all diehard people off the forum, come together and build Tethered, like that's what allowed it to be so revolutionary and cutting edge. And I mean, Ernie and Greg and all of us, we're just making stuff that we wanted to use. Like, how can we make a Ferrari? And who cares what it costs? And, lo and behold, the rest is history. But it's been fun to, like, that's how you meet cool people and get to keep pushing forward in the hunting industry and try and just, like, nobody cares about fame, any of that BS. Like, everybody just wants to make awesome products that make our life easier in the tree or make it more efficient to kill critters. And it's been pretty fun to help do that.
And that was pretty evident when we talked to Adrian too. I mean, he had the same thing. I mean, he was talking the same thing. He said the saddle hunter piece and all that stuff. So, listen, I know you got another call, so I want to make sure we get into this, but we can't talk to you without talking to you about the Burbs. I mean, that's what you're known for. You could probably talk about it in your sleep. It's clear that you guys have a problem in terms of deer population in that area. So I kind of wanted to get more into the statistics of it, if you will, the deer density. I know you guys mentioned deer density a lot. The issues that you guys have with CWD now, and how you guys are trying to mitigate that. So try to dive a little bit deeper into that, and then maybe even like how does someone like apply for that, or how does someone like in your area, like what's the process and the step to go through to kind of get into doing what you're doing?
Yeah. So the Burbs are quite an interesting thing going on here, right? We have pretty mediocre forest here. I mean, it's mixed hardwoods, doesn't have a ton of mast. I mean, we have a boatload of acorns, but outside of that, there's really not a ton of mast. And so what we've done is, as a species, like over, the last 80 years, 100 years, we have, with urban sprawl, we're taking away mediocre habitat and we're replacing it with neighborhoods. And those neighborhoods are lush landscape, pretty aesthetic places that we like to drive home to. And with that, we have now replaced mediocre habitat with lush, fertilized landscaping that the deer love. Might not be the healthiest thing for them to eat, but
sure,
it'd be like if we lived, my freshman year in college, I lived right behind a Sheetz gas station. It wasn't the healthiest place to live, but damn, we were there a lot, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And so in the same, not only are we taking away habitat for them to kind of live in normally and increasing it with this lush landscaping, but we're also taking away hunter opportunities or traditional hunting opportunities, right? Big woods of timber that people can hunt in. And so we've created this huge issue where now, the carrying capacity for these woods are anywhere from 10 to 12 deer per square mile, max 15. They cannot even get a rough count of how overpopulated the deer are. When they look at them with like a thermal imaging study, it just looks like you kicked the anthill. There are pockets here that their best guess are that the deer density is somewhere between 420 to 425 deer per square mile.
That's wild.
It's nuts.
That's
now,
like
granted,
unfathomable.
Yeah, and that's not everywhere. It's not like there are deer just like pouring out of the sewer vents like
rats,
like some zombie apocalypse, right? Like they're crammed into the remaining habitat that's there. They live on the fringe. They live in areas where they still feel safe. But there have to be people that are comfortable to go hunt them in these settings and do it, in a respectable manner, and do it with the right, ethical mindset. You're not just flinging arrows. You're not, shooting them out your window, but you're actually hunting them. But it's a great opportunity to, one, show people that there's awesome hunting in the suburbs. Two, take an overabundant resource and then put them to good use. And so what Billy and I do with 99% of the deer that we shoot is we donate them to the homeless. So we have opportunities here in Northern Virginia, well, throughout Virginia really, but for us, it's called Hunters for the Hungry.
Yep.
Most states have
we have that as well.
Something
Yep.
similar.
Yep.
And so we're able to take a deer that we shoot, literally just gut it, take it to the butcher, and throw it on the floor and say later. And that deer then gets processed free of charge. The butcher gets paid for it, but he gets paid from the state.
Yeah, great.
And yep. And then that deer goes to food banks and homeless shelters and helps feed the needy. So that's a great resource to have. And I can't tell you how many homeowners have been kind of on the fence about hunting. And once they realize what the meat is going towards, they're like, okay, cool. I want to be a part of that. Like, you're in.
Is that part that part of your like sales pitch, if you will, for lack of a better term? Like when you say if you're having someone that's kind of on the fence about it, how often do you bring that up? I would imagine pretty often.
All the time. Yeah, it's important to let them know. Let them know what the meat's going towards. But yeah, it's and anybody who's interested in hearing our full sales pitch, I got together with the Seek One guys.
Yep.
Who I'm shooting does. I'm a ladies' man. I'm always looking for quantity, but
sure.
Lee and Drew look for quality over quantity. Exactly. They have some giant bucks running around there in Atlanta. But what was interesting to me when I first met Lee and Drew was how similar we all were. And I didn't know them from Adam. And they did the same thing that I've done here with Billy and the Burbs. And we go through our pitch word for word on a urban hunting masterclass that we put together. And it was really scary how identical they were, to have like a complete stranger from Atlanta have the exact same pitch that that I have generally. But yeah, it's important to let the homeowners know like what the meat's going towards and why it's important to allow us to hunt.
Oh, for sure. Go ahead and take a second and pitch that. Yeah, you're more than welcome. We'll put that in the show notes as well, because I remember when that class was coming out.
Oh, the masterclass? Yeah, it's just the Seek One Hunt Urban Masterclass. If you Google it, you can find the website for it. But we go through in detail kind of what to say, how to pick properties, what to say, how to go about it. All the little intricate details that go into getting a successful property pitch.
I guess you kind of touched on this a little bit too, but I wanted you to kind of get a second to talk about the bubble, if you will. I remember you talking to Mark and hearing you on Mark's podcast about Mark Kinnean, that is, for those that don't know, but like the bubble and like not breaking that bubble and what the deer comfortable patterns are and how that differs from just, hunting like here in Ohio where we have hundreds of acres to do that. Yeah,
for sure. We actually had some fun. Mark came up this year and we we're able to, he's working on some new content, but he came up and I gave him the rundown of urban hunting and kind of, we went on a couple hunts together and then we just threw him right into the fire. So it was pretty fun to get him in the backyards and hunting from some urban trees. But yeah, the deer here, they know where humans go and where they don't go, and where they're living. We commonly refer to that as the bubble. And so you want to find an area that deer are comfortable being in, but also figure out where the human traffic kind of overlaps and then push into that Venn diagram, if you will, as far as you can, that they're comfortable. Because if you go too far, the deer blow out.
Yeah.
And so one of the keys to urban hunting, and that's no different than hunting in big woods in Ohio, right?
Yeah.
You need to figure out, where are the deer, where are they bedding, where are they feeding, where are they traveling from, like where are they going to be when I'm hunting them? And then, they're not comfortable with humans being anywhere, but how close can I push in to that core range? Like where can I chip into that to where the deer's going to be during legal shooting hours, and then how do I get an arrow into it, or a bullet in your guys' case? But,
yeah, sure.
That's pretty much hunting in a nutshell. And so in the burbs, you just need to figure out, like, it's just everything. It's like hunting Big Woods, Ohio, stuffed into one of those little, like, pirate ships in a bottle, right? Because you're very constrained. It's a micro size. You're constrained to where you can operate in. And that's part of what makes it so tough, because you have these, like, very defined lines of property lines, and the deer are crossing them all the time because they don't care
there's
who owns what property. I mean, they're just trying to stay safe. And so you really have to weigh, though, the risk to reward of getting permission on multiple properties, because if you knock on the wrong door and you piss off some lady, well, now she's going to go talk to her neighbors and be like, don't allow them to hunt here, blah, 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 whatever. Like, I don't care how pro hunting a dude is, or lady is, a person is, if they give you permission and then their neighbor is chewing them out for letting you hunt there, your permission is gone.
Yeah, they're not,
because you're just not going to deal with pissing off your neighbor. Like, they could be like, hey man, like, I'm all for this, but I have to live next to this crazy lady, and
no doubt,
sorry,
and her 15 cats.
Exactly. Well, and most of the time, so, like, when you go to a property and you ask, like, hey, how's it going? Whatever, and you maybe see some signs that, like, they're feeding the deer. Obviously don't ask them for permission, but go ask the neighbors and be like, hey, I noticed Karen over there is feeding the deer, and they'll be like, oh my God, yeah, that chick is crazy, like, shoot them all. Right? Like, so you got to read your audience. It's very much it's a sales pitch, and you're selling, but instead of having money change hands, you're having permission.
Yeah. And
the product, the service that you're providing is, hunting. So you need to just keep that in mind.
No, for sure.
When talking to people. And, the whole reason that I got into filming hunts, or even putting, like, myself out there, was, teaching myself to hunt was very difficult. It was very much an uphill battle, and just the sense of learning how to hunt in the burbs, but also how to be successful in hunting, and how to get permission and all the intricacies of it. And I just wanted to try and put content out there that would help people make their life easier. And whether that's tuning a bow, or what broadhead to use, or where on a property to sit, how to get permission, whatever that is, I wanted to make somebody's life as easy as possible. And, that's just what we're trying to do. And hopefully some of the stuff that we put out there, can help someone cut that learning curve down some, because it's definitely
for sure
steep. But now you see, I mean, I can't tell you how many people reach out and contact me that are new, adult onset hunters that are like, hey man, I live in DC. I have never hunted before in my life, but I care about the food that I'm putting in my body, and I'm tired of eating $40 a pound, like, free range bison from Whole Foods. Like, can you teach me how to hunt? You're like, hell yeah, man, let's go. Like, anybody that wants to get out there, hopefully we're able to teach them how to do it appropriately, because, like, when you are hunting in the suburbs, it's very, very critical that you're only taking ethical shots, and you are making every point possible to not create an issue down the road.
Exactly.
Like, the difference between a deer running like 40 yards and piling up with their landing gear completely malfunction, like snow plowing through a yard and dying, and a deer running 100 yards is night and day, because that could be 3 property lines that they're over, and now you got a pissed off lady with a dead deer in their pool who wants to kill you,
Oh, no,
and
yeah.
you're losing permission, 100%.
Oh, for sure. No, and I think, I mean, you touched like the reason why you want to, and I definitely think you've had, man. I mean, like I said, I know for the two of us, even just from the saddle perspective and learning that and seeing the tips and tricks and kind of using your tinkering weakness, if you will, to our advantage has been huge.
It's helped me a lot for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Ben and I even actually, I mean, we hunted. You know, I joined our local city programs here around us just because of that, and it's like that extra little bit of a challenge. I think it's just it's awesome, and it gets people the opportunity to look differently on how you hunt. You know, and you're getting it done on quarter acre parcels. You know, you don't always have to have this 500-acre mega groomed Iowa perfect condition land to kill and be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have 500 acres
Oh, sure.
in Iowa, right? I mean, I love going up to Ohio and hunting on, in Big Woods area. But, it's important to get out and get out in the woods. And so if you're able to do that in, areas that are 10 minutes from your house, 15 minutes from your house, well, then that's pretty sweet, right?
Oh,
and,
sure.
I've gone from having to drive 45 minutes to a military base here in the DC area to hunt, to now being able to hunt anywhere I want. I mean, I have over 1,500 trees that I could go climb into tomorrow and shoot a deer from, hopefully, within a 15-minute drive of my house.
That's awesome.
Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And I mean, it's a lot of work, and you have to put the effort in year round. And I mean, dealing with the property owners is almost a full-time job.
Yeah, no doubt.
But the juice is worth the squeeze. Now, if I had deer that Lee and Drew had running around, I'd really be loving life.
No joke.
But
no joke.
that's neither here nor there.
Well, brother, we're getting close to your deadline here. I know we probably could have talked. I mean, there's 1,000 more things I probably could have talked about. We probably could have gone for a couple more hours, but I'll let you get going. But again, thank you for coming on. What you're doing is great. Keep it up, and we look forward to talking to you and maybe hanging out in the tree with you sometime here in the future, man.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'd love to come back on, and we can really get into the weeds on some gear.
Do
That'd
it
be great.
after hours so we can actually crack into some lattes, adult beverages.
Oh, you guys aren't drinking lattes right now?
I wish. All right,
yeah,
bro.
and yeah, I mean, also Billy and I are up in kind of your guys' neck of the woods a little bit.
Yeah, we kind of
occasionally. So yeah, we hunt near Chillicothe. So
yeah, we have one of our pro staffers, Isaiah Dressback, has a place down there in that area. We went down not too long ago, and that's about 45 minutes to an hour from us, but everything's really close. It's kind of like the East Coast, man. Everything's like 30 minutes away. If traffic is, but we don't have the traffic. So we'll definitely meet up. We'll link up. Obviously, we have that Tethered event coming up here this August as well, so that'd be a really cool opportunity. But real fast, before I forget, where can people find you if they don't know? If you want to go ahead and promote your social channels, go ahead and take a second to do that before you head out.
Yeah, so other than my OnlyFans account, you can definitely find me on Instagram under Urban Bowman. On YouTube, it's Hunt Urban, and then my buddy Billy and I have a podcast. It's called the Hang and Hunt Podcast. So check it out if you aren't already following along on anything.
I don't know if you had a chance to see, I don't know how active you are on Facebook, but did you see Tethered had a thing about, it was a picture of you on your phone, like wrong answers only. I commented on it. I was like, OnlyFans is the only answer for this content.
I had an alarming number of text messages yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Might have been the day before. And every single one of them referenced Grindr. So I don't know.
That's fantastic.
Maybe I'm missing the boat somewhere.
No joke.
But, yeah, it's. I don't know. I guess I'm just true to myself.
There you go. Well, brother, it's been great, man. Thanks for coming on, and we look forward to linking up again sometime this year.
Thanks, bro.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Take care, man. Have a great day. All right, everyone, that's all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed that conversation with Taylor. I know Ben and I could have gone on for at least a couple more hours. As always, we appreciate you listening. Please give us a rating and definitely be sure to share us with a friend. It helps us grow the show and continue to provide you with the best guests possible. Until next time, enjoy the pursuit.